before, and I'm really tempted to lie about it.
And say no.
My sugar daddy would be really upset about it if I really told you. No, I did a lot of research, and...
That wasn't a question.
Did you go up in a Zeppelin that flies over my house?
I have not yet. So, as far as I'm concerned, everything I wrote is the gospel truth.
So you don't know if there's a window and a high ceiling in the bathroom?
I do. There's a lot of pictures online. There's a lot of people who have done this. And, of course, they take pictures. And I needed to know a lot about what that bathroom was going to look like on account of all of the important things that was going to happen there. I've got a number of scenes that happen in bathrooms because I figure... Why not take the only place that you know you are going to be safe and alone and make bad things happen there so that you are afraid of that? But actually...
This is not like potty training then.
Not quite like potty training, no. I actually had the photo on my desktop for a very long time was while I was writing the book, was somebody's Flickr picture of that airborne toilet.
I have to ask a question. Being a non-local, does everybody in the Bay Area know about this Zeppelin? Is that something you're just not telling us about in the rest of the country? No, you never heard of it before?
No, never heard of it.
There really is a Zeppelin, right?
There's blimps, there's no Zeppelin.
No,
there's a Zeppelin.
It flies from both the Oakland Airport and the Monterey Airport and comes around the city, across the Bay Bridge, around the city in a loop, out over the Golden Gate Bridge, and then flies back. And from my back deck, every once in a while, I'll walk out and go,
what's it say
"It is a
on it?
good future. There is a Zeppelin." I can't. It's not close enough that I've ever seen it, but it's a big, long. It's a Zeppelin.
It's a
And
rigid frame.
And
That's the Zeppelin,
they are
rigid
trying
frame.
to get Zeppelin service started from San Francisco to LA, and then hope that it catches on again. It's no longer hydrogen.
Yes, it's helium.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, that takes the fun out of it.
Humanity.
I was going to say the good name for it would be All the Humanity.
All right, well, back to literature. Mark, I felt like I cut you guys off a little bit, and I'm sorry, but I couldn't get a sense of what what's the shape of this book? Does it take place on the ground with these? I mean, you explained a little bit about the alternating chapters, but what's the storyline? What's the arc?
Sure. So the storyline of the book is that John Moore, my protagonist, whose best friend is a machine, an artificially intelligent machine. My homage to Tom Swift's Triphibian Atomicar. It's a Predator-class assault vehicle, 8 meters wide, 25 meters long, that happens to house perhaps the smartest brain in the universe. It's his best friend. My characters are pretty alienated. You know, when your best friend is a metal-killing machine, you know, you've got some social issues to work on. And he does. He gets a call from somebody he owes a favor to, and the first line of the book, actually I have it. The first line of the book is, let me get it right. I believe it is, if I show you, you'll be in. And this is a character from his past who knows that he has a weakness for issues related to children, asks him to come help with these child soldiers, wants him to be a team leader and help them get in, wants his ship. And the first part of the book, I don't write military SF. We were talking about during the blogcast. My publisher markets it that way because that's something Bain knows. But if you ask any of the people who write military SF, it's not what I do. I write stories that are basically PI books merged with SF. So if you read James Lee Burke, a brilliant writer in my opinion, his Dave Robichaux is a guy with a military background who's a cop and at times a private investigator. Nobody calls it military science fiction. He gets involved in a lot of different things. That's my character, who has a military background, but I don't tend to write it. This is actually the closest to military SF I've written, in that for the first part of the book, John goes and helps lead an assault on a fort where, for reasons that the plot makes sense, all these child soldiers are housed for one night during basically a peacekeeper inspection. They rescue the kids, and then the book changes. And science fiction is full as is mystery, of plot arcs that are basically the American monomyth. The hero rides into town. The hero possesses special skills that are necessary to address the problem, usually violent skills. The hero uses those skills, and then at the end, the hero has to leave, because the skills that make the hero useful to solve the problems are not societally acceptable. They also make this person someone you do not want next door, and so it is crucial that the hero leaves. This is why PIs move in and out of the society, but they live in an outsider society. This is why so many heroes move in and then leave at the end. And I wanted to play with that a little bit, because even though I was working in that sort of thematic or structural genre, I wanted to play with it. And so the most interesting question about an American monomyth character is what happens when that character has to stay or decides to stay. And this was the perfect avenue, because in the backstory of the book, there's a set of interwoven chapters talking about how John went from being a mentally challenged 16-year-old with the intelligence of a 5-year-old. He was healed by his empathic healer sister, and made quite special. How he became the person he is, how he was trained to kill. And so there's his story, the child soldiers, and then there comes a point where he's there, he's done, and they say, bye, leave, and he realizes he can't. That this is really spoken to him, and so he asks to stay. And they say to him quite correctly, and this was another problem for me structurally, you do not have the training to be a counselor to help these children. Because you can't write a story where you just suddenly give somebody special abilities they didn't have, I believe. You can't just make shit up that isn't internally consistent, and that isn't what his skill is, or he'd be better off himself. And so he agrees to do whatever they need, janitorial work, guard duty, whatever, which is what he ends up doing. He ends up cleaning and walking patrol. But he wants to stay and help. It turns out, of course, that his special skills do help, and eventually at the end of the book he leaves, but I got to play with the American monomyth structure, keep him there, while in the course of the book showing that some of the issues and challenges in rehabilitating and reintegrating the child soldiers. And he has a special connection to these kids and ends up talking with them, ends up doing it. There's actually a pivotal chapter, thematically probably the high point, but it's only about 2/3 of the way through, where one of the children dies, and he interrupts the eulogy and talks to the children directly about what really happened. And the counselors don't like it. He's breaking a lot of rules, but he is the one among them who has been that. And so that was what he could bring. So it was a bit of a structural, literary mashup, because hey, why not? And then the different threads.